have seen the torch of freedom pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all. So with deep appreciation for the blessings we have.
This is Dr. George Simon with another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face. And that affects so many areas of our lives. I think we have the problem finally solved right now, and perhaps we're going to be good to go for the rest of the program. I certainly hope so. We had an issue where I kept breaking off the air, and I kept having a delay in the audio, and I think it's taken care of now. I'm pretty sure it is. If we have problems again, I'll let you know, but looks like we're good to go. At any rate, we have a lot of material to cover tonight, and if you want to join the conversation, once again, I invite you to call in at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'm happy to take your call if you want to pick my brain about something, if you want to ask a question about one of the articles that I've posted on the manipulative-people.com blog, or if you want to share a story or two that you think would benefit the listening audience, or perhaps you have a question about something you've read in one of my books, or want some amplification on something I touched on in either my book In Sheep's Clothing, Character Disturbance, or my book The Judas Syndrome, or How Did We End Up Here? Perhaps you have a question about something in one of those books, or a topic that you want to expand on, or get me to expand on that I talk about in any of those books. Feel free, in any case, to give me a call at 718-717-8296. Well, it looks like we finally have all of our technical issues addressed, and I'm sorry for the difficulty. We had a good deal of problem there for about the first 8 minutes of the program, and I apologize for that. That was on my end, some computer issues here that I did not notice were going on, and that has been due to the fact that we are having some storms roll through here, and we had a brief power outage, and I was anticipating we could possibly have another, and therefore had to do some system restarts, and didn't have everything quite in the order that it needed to be in for us to get the program on the air without glitches. But we should be okay now. And once again, if you want to join the conversation, The number to call is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. Well, this has been an interesting week. The article that I posted this past Friday is a continuing part of the series that began a few weeks ago that previews my upcoming book with Dr. Kathy Armistead, tentatively titled The 10 Commandments of Character, How to Lead a Significant Life. This is a book that people have been asking me to put into print for several years, and that I finally got busy with my co-author, Dr. Armistead, last year, and it's still in edits, unfortunately, at this time, but hopefully at the end of the summer it will be ready to go, and you can have in your hand or on Kindle or on some other digital download our latest release together, The 10 Commandments of Character, How to Lead a Significant Life. And I've been talking about the so-called fourth commandment of character development, sound character development, the importance of revering the truth. And, we live in an age where so many folks play so fast and loose with the truth, and so often, that we've simply come to expect it. There was a time, there truly was a time, when a person's word was, in fact, his or her bond, where deals truly were sealed on a handshake. Large deals, important deals, where folks could be trusted to be good to their word. Unfortunately, lying has become so commonplace, and in so many subtle ways, that we've come to expect it. And unfortunately, it really wreaks havoc with character development. Now, it's natural for human beings to lie. A lot of research has been done about this. And, we lie for two reasons, basically. We lie in order to prevent or avoid something we don't want to happen. Some negative consequence that we fear, something that we don't want to see happen in some way. We lie to prevent those things from happening that we don't want to happen. And then the other reason we lie is to help ensure that something we want to happen, but we don't think we can make happen by legitimate means, we lie to make those things happen. So we lie to get something we want that we don't think we can get honestly, and we lie to avoid something we don't want to have happen, something we don't want. Those are the two reasons we lie, basically. And there are some people, and I talk about this in the article that I posted on Friday. There are some people who unfortunately lie even when the truth would do just fine. And they lie repeatedly, senselessly. Sometimes we've called these kinds of individuals pathological liars because they just don't seem to be able to tell the truth, even when it would serve their interest to do so, or even when it would be relatively easy to do so, even when you're scratching your head and wondering, why wouldn't the person just be truthful? Why do I get the feeling that when I'm dealing with this person, it's always a game? It's always a guessing game. Why do I never feel like I can trust them, even though I want to? And even when there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. And so I talk about all these things in the article that I've written, and I'll be talking some more in future articles as well. But there are actually reasons for these things. You know, researchers years ago thought that such senseless pathological lying was actually a type of irrationality bordering on insanity, because they noticed that there just didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to some people's lying. It just didn't make any sense at all. And so a lot of researchers came to the conclusion, or some researchers did, that such quote-unquote pathological lying must be a form of irrationality. The person must be pretty well irrational, maybe even bordering on insane, at least on a moral level. And we now know that this is not the case. Habitual, even pathological liars are not crazy. And they're certainly not irrational, even though what they do and how they behave seems irrational. And not all habitual liars are senseless liars. They just get so used to lying that it becomes second nature for them. And they keep doing it largely because they get away with it, or it appears to serve their purposes. And what we know, one moment. So, if you want to understand these folks, if you really want to understand these folks, you have to understand that what they're really up to is the game of what we call impression management. It's the game of impression management. And what do we mean by impression management? Well, what we're talking about is we're talking about having people think a certain way about you or form a certain impression of you that you want them to have that conceals the reality of who you are. Making sure people see you the way you want them to see you, rather than who you are. Politicians are really good about this. Well, some of them are. Some of them aren't very good at it. But they're not the only folks like this. This is a feature of a lot of different types of character disturbance. And it is just part of the nature of some folks to be so hell-bent on not being unmasked, so to speak, or uncovered for who they really are, that they would just simply never tell you the truth. And this is the sense of senseless appearing lying. In other words, this is the rationality of what seems totally irrational. When you find yourself scratching your head and asking yourself, Why would someone lie, even when the truth would do just fine? Even when it would seem to serve their better interest to just fess up or be honest or tell you the straight story. Well, the reason is that they never want you to be on to them. They always want to be one step ahead of you. They always want to have a position of advantage over you. And if you were to know what they were all about and what they were up to, what's really on their mind, what's really going on, then the playing field would be level, so to speak. But so long as you don't really know, so long as they're the masters of the game, then they've got one up on you. They've got one up on you. So that's the name of the game. That's the name of the impression management game. And that's really what's behind this kind of lying we call pathological lying. This senseless, habitual lying that doesn't seem to make any sense, that appears like there's no rhyme or reason to it, that appears like the truth would suffice or even serve the person better, and has us scratching our heads and asking ourselves why the person would do it. And it's really that simple. There are some people who are just out to dupe you about who they are and what they're really all about. And some would say that they have a fear of being unmasked, and it's a kind of defense to act this way. In my experience, that's not the case. These folks are not, these con artists, as you will, are not afraid of being known. They don't like being known, but they're not afraid of it. Rather, they just prefer it that way because they always prefer to have the edge. For them, it's all about the position of advantage. And in my workshops, I tell folks over and over again, both my professional workshops and my workshops for the general public, I tell folks that just like in real estate, where there are three things that matter, you've heard the adage, in real estate, three things matter: position, position, and position. Well, in some people's minds, especially in the warped mind of disturbed and disordered characters, there are only three things that matter. There are only three things that matter to the impaired character: position, position, and position. These folks are always jockeying for a position of advantage. And it's as simple as that. That's what they want to have. That's what all of their behavior is about. All of their behavior, not just their lying, but all their manipulative behavior. It's always about maintaining the position of advantage. It's about being able to take advantage of you without you really knowing what they're up to, and without you unmasking their true character so that you know who you're really dealing with and can make some kind of judgments about that. Make judgments especially about whether or not you want to have anything to do with such folks. That's what it's all about. It's really that simple. So that's one of the reasons why I've been writing about this, and have posted another article on my manipulative-people.com blog just this past Friday, which has been getting a lot of activity from folks, some folks especially commenting about how timely the article appears to be given the political season that we're in, and given how frequently, unfortunately, our political leaders engage in this kind of behavior. It's a really sad statement that the folks who would lead us, the folks who would take on the responsibility of defending us, of moving us forward, of taking care of our essential needs that we can't care for ourselves. It's a real tragedy that we can't tell them, that we can't trust them to tell us the truth so many times. And these things, these unfortunate aspects of character disturbance, they take their toll. Our society can't help but be impacted by this behavior. I was reading just a few hours ago. I was a passenger in a car on the way back home from a road trip, and I was reading on Google News about the resignation of the pending resignation of the chairperson of the Democratic National Committee, who had denied for so long that there was any bias within the political machine or the party the party apparatus, the party hierarchy. Had denied for so long that there was any bias toward one candidate or another, when truly the followers, the supporters of one candidate knew, they just knew in their hearts that there was a bias. And then WikiLeaks, it's always WikiLeaks who brings these things to light. WikiLeaks brought to light some emails that show that indeed a bias was at work, and efforts were made to discredit one candidate over the other at the party level. Well, this is supposed to be an open, fair process, not a rigged process, as one of the other candidates has alleged. We can't trust anybody anymore. It's pretty sad. Pretty sad. Pretty hard to trust people. Pretty hard to close a deal on a handshake and think that it's a good deal. Pretty hard to take somebody at their word. And that's a sad day. It's a real loss. It's a loss for our society, because we're only as strong and we're only as good as the individuals among us have character. It's just that simple. And that's really the sentiment behind the song that you hear every single week at the beginning and at the end. Folks who are new to the program may wonder why they hear a patriotic sounding piece at the beginning and the end of the program. If you listen closely, you'll hear that sentiment reflected in the song. It's all about where a country's real greatness can lie. In the character of his people. People who take an honest day's work seriously, who take their responsibilities seriously, who take seriously the raising of their families, and who dedicate themselves in one way or another, not just to their personal enrichment, but to the greater good, to do their part, to make this all work. That's what makes great countries. That's what's always made this country great during the periods when it has been great. And there's nothing as destructive to an individual character, and nothing as destructive to the character, the overall character of a country, is all this habitual, senseless, remorseless, inveterate lying that happens each and every day. We can't trust each other. It's epidemic. And one of the points that I make in my article on the manipulative-people.com blog is that this is a dynamic that affects character development right from the word go. You know, when we're shaping up to be the characters that we are in our formative years, when we're developing our character, how honest we are with ourselves about the difficulties we face, about the failures we've had, the mistakes and judgments that we've made, how honest we reckon with our shortcomings and errors plays a huge role in what kind of people we will become. There's perhaps no more insidious lie than the lies we tell ourselves when we blame others, when we rationalize, make excuses for certain things, when we put our head in the sand and refuse to look at things that are as obvious to anyone else as the nose on our face. Those kinds of lies are really destructive to us, bringing any kind of decency to our character. It's just that simple. Without an honest self-reckoning, we can't turn out to be decent people. None of us is perfect. None of us. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to fail. We're going to do some bad things. But if we're not honest about those things, and if we don't honestly confront and reckon with those things, we'll never get better. We'll never engage in that self-corrective process or that self-corrective effort that it takes to be a better person. Now, why do I harp on this? Well, I harp on this because, unfortunately, as a therapist who's been in practice for many years and who's literally dealt with hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals with significant character problems, I know, unfortunately, of too many folks and too many treatment programs also, too, by the way, that have wasted so much time and so much money and so much effort nursemaiding individuals who are thought to be in some kind of a state of psychological denial, when in fact these people were simply lying to themselves. Now, Some of you out there are probably going to ask yourself the question, isn't lying to yourself the same as denial? The answer is a whopping, resounding no. Absolutely not. Even though it is mistaken for that. And not only mistaken for that by your average person sometimes, but even supposedly skilled and educated mental health professionals make this mistake also sometimes. They equate so-called denial with self-deception, and it's not the same thing. True denial is a primitive, unconscious defense mechanism. It's nature's way of preventing you from consciously experiencing what would be otherwise overwhelming emotional pain, emotional or psychological pain. It's not something you do out of habit. It's something nature does for you without you even knowing it, to keep you from going to pieces. Now, fooling yourself, even fooling yourself to the point where you've done it so often and so egregiously that you begin to believe your lies, that kind of quote-unquote denial is not denial at all. It may be second nature to you. You may do it without thinking. It might be habitual. It might be automatic. But it's certainly not unconscious. And it's really destructive. It's really destructive to sound character development. I don't know how many of you out there have had the unfortunate experience of undergoing what I call therapy-induced trauma by having a loved one or somebody you knew or someone you were in a relationship with that had some serious character issues and got into some really destructive behavior and then went into treatment and were nursemaided through this so-called denial that they were supposed to be in, only to lose thousands of dollars in precious time waiting for a person who had simply not stepped up and gotten honest with themselves about a problem they really needed to get on top of. I can think of so many examples. I can think of so many examples, unfortunately, in myself, where I failed myself to confront an individual that I cared about to a degree, about just that kind of self-deceptive behavior. I remember quite vividly a friend of mine who has had episodic struggles throughout his life with alcohol and other substances, who was clearly kidding themselves about what they were doing when they decided that they didn't really have such a big problem after all and didn't really need to remain abstinent after all. Some things were going on in their life that were stressful, and they were getting very, very thirsty, as folks in recovery are wont to say. So they started not only drinking, but making excuses and fooling themselves. And they even had the nerve to try and test friends. And for too long, I let it go until one day I finally got up the courage to confront this individual and say, I think you're fooling yourself. Now, I don't know what good that did. I mean, the person that did eventually turn things around and get back on the wagon. And did admit the truth. I don't know if what I said, the confrontation I made, helped or didn't help, or was just a part of the whole experience that needed to have happen for this person to finally start reckoning. But I do regret that it took me so long to have the courage to confront directly the problem. And that's what I've learned as a therapist over the years, refining what I call the art of benign confrontation. In working with individuals with character disturbance, you have to have the courage to lovingly and warmly, but fearlessly, confront the truth. It's really always the truth that has the power to heal. I'll repeat that again because it's worth repeating. In the end, it's always the truth that has the power to heal. When people face the truth, especially when they face the truth about themselves, it's a beginning. It's a new beginning. We are great self-deceivers. And we always get ourselves into trouble in that regard. Maybe you know that firsthand. Maybe you know that from experience with someone else who you've had to confront in a loving way to get them to see or accept what was going on in their lives that needed correcting. In any case, if you want to join the conversation or if you have something you want to contribute, or a question you want to ask or a comment you want to make on anything in my books or on any of the articles posted in the past few weeks on the manipulative-people.com blog, give us a call while we still have some time remaining tonight at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296, and I'll be happy to take your call. Well, once again, my apologies for our technical difficulties earlier. I was not able to successfully log in and stay logged in, and so the broadcast kept doing some funny things. And then because of a computer glitch, I was getting a difficult echo to deal with as well. We finally got that fixed. So unfortunately, the folks who tuned in at the very beginning of the program, the first 8 minutes of the program, got an awful lot of on the air, off the air, and confusing kind of stuff. And I certainly do apologize for that. I also want to let you know that a week from tonight, I will be not able to do the program live. So you will be treated to a pre-recorded edition of Character Matters next Sunday. I believe that Sunday, let's see, what date are we talking about here? I think that is August the 3rd. I'm not sure. No, I'm sorry. That is July the 29th, maybe, or 30th. Let me just see. let me see here. The 31st, that's right, it's July the 31st. I will not be available to do the program live, Sunday, July 31st. So you might even hear, because it's a pre-recorded show, you might even hear a call to call in if you want to make a comment, but you won't be able to call in and talk to me live on the 31st of July because it will be a pre-recorded program. Also, just as a reminder, I want to let you folks know that I will be in the Madison, Wisconsin, and, in the Appleton, Wisconsin, and Brookfield, Wisconsin, and Schaumburg, Illinois areas the second week of August. August 10th, 11th, and 12th. I'll be in Appleton on August 10th, in Brookfield on August 11th, and in Schaumburg, Illinois on August 12th. And so you can check on the Cross Country Education website, searching by my name, George Simon, for live seminars, and you can get that information, or you can visit my manipulative-people.com blog at www.manipulative-people.com and click on the page for workshops, seminars, and webinars, and the information that you need for the workshops will be posted there. So you'll have all the information you need if you want to attend. Now, I should tell you once again, these workshops are primarily geared toward mental health professionals, but I present them in such a way that anyone can attend and gain benefit. The only drawback is because they are geared primarily toward mental health professionals and other medical professionals, they're priced accordingly. So they are unfortunately not as reasonable as my strictly for the public workshops. But I'll be there in person presenting. I'll also have books with me. And so if you want to participate or just sit in, you're welcome. Just check the website at Cross Country Education. That's www.crosscountryeducation.com. Search under my name for the live seminars. You'll find them listed. The name of the seminar is Manipulators and Character Disorders. And then also you can find the information on my personal blog on the page for webinars and workshops and seminars. So you're welcome to that information, and you're welcome to attend. Just be prepared if you're not a mental health professional or another medical professional. Just be prepared for a little sticker shock, but otherwise would love to have you there. And also, once again, I won't be here live next Sunday, the 31st of July. I will be away on a brief vacation and will not be able to take your calls live. So even if you hear on the pre-recorded program a call for you to call in and join the conversation, be aware that you will not be able to talk to me live on next Sunday's program. Well, we still have a little bit of time if anyone wants to join the conversation tonight at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'm happy to take your call. Like I said, I've been posting on the fourth commandment of sound character development and I will be posting on those commandments for the next several weeks in advance of the publication of my fifth book, again in consort with my co-author, Dr. Kathy Armistead, who did a great job with me on our most recent release and soon a bestseller, How Did We End Up Here? The book for you if you have either come to the end of or in the midst of what you have come to believe is a toxic, destructive relationship. How Did We End Up Here is the book for you because it explains how you did end up where you did and how to help ensure that something like that does not happen again, how you can pick up the pieces, move on, and most especially how you can become a much better job of character. It's getting more and more difficult these days. People have become so skilled in the art of impression management and interpersonal manipulation that it's difficult to tell these days who someone really is in character until, unfortunately, it's too late. You know, hindsight is always 20/20. But dealing with a manipulative character or a good impression manager is, as I say, like getting whiplash. You know what's happened, but after the damage has already been done. On the front end, you may be taken in by all the seduction, all the schmoozing, all the good impression managing, all of the best-faced forward kind of stuff that they do, and then you only discover what they're really like in character later on when you see how they treat you, what little regard they really have for you, how incapable or unwilling they are to take the harder, more responsible path, and how prone they are to take the easier, self-serving path. This is what all too many people in relationships have to go through these days, and it's a sad, sad commentary on the state of our times. We live in very, very different times. This is the reason I got invested in my work so many years ago, and why I've written so many books. And by the way, I do appreciate all the support. I'm going to be doing some special programs as we get closer to September, because September the 14th actually will mark the 20th year in major print for my first book, In Sheep's Clothing, still this to this day, 20 years running, still an international bestseller. 20 years, this coming September 14th. And that's just in major print. It, of course, has been revised and updated a few times, but 20 years is an awful long time in this business, and I couldn't be more proud or edified. It's sad in a way. It's sad to think two things. It's sad to think that the problem that I talk about in the book, that of manipulation, and especially what's usually underneath manipulation, covert aggression, these characters who know how to look good on the outside but are out to do you in on the inside. It is a bit disheartening that not only do these folks exist, but there are many more of them. And it's also a bit disheartening that after all this time, my book is still the seminal book on this topic. It's still the go-to definitive work on this topic because others simply miss the mark. There are other books out there, but they miss the mark. Whereas this book validates the gut hunches that folks in manipulative relationships have always had. And because it validates their gut hunches, and because it explains to them precisely what their manipulative relationship partner is doing, and why they are doing it, and why it defines them in character, and how it defines them in character. Because it explains these things, it brings to them this kind of aha experience where they, for the first time, see things as they really are, and they stop feeling crazy. They stop having that, what we call gaslight syndrome, where they feel crazy because they know in their heart of hearts, or they suspect very strongly what's really going on with this person, but they can't put their finger clearly on it, nor can they prove it, not objectively. And so they doubt. They doubt themselves, and they start to wonder if, in fact, they haven't got it all wrong. They know there's something wrong with their partner, but their partner has them thinking there's something wrong with them. And that's what makes them feel crazy. And so the real blessing and the real power of my first book, In Sheep's Clothing, and how it spurred all the other books and their bestseller status. The real power and the secret to that book's success and why it's been out for so long is that it validates. It validates those individuals who have suspected all along certain things about their manipulative, conning, impression-managing partner, but couldn't prove. And that just opened up everything for them. Once they saw it, once they felt validated, everything made sense, and they no longer felt crazy anymore. So I'm so happy for the success of the book, and happy that it has served its purpose well. And I can't wait to celebrate with you its 20-year anniversary. So we'll be having some special programs in advance and during that period on that coming up. And as I mentioned, next week we will not be live. It'll be a pre-recorded program, so you will not be able to call in, even though you may hear on the pre-recorded program a call to call in. I won't be able to take your call live, but I appreciate you tuning in tonight, and I appreciate you tuning in every week at this time for Character Matters. There's nothing that really matters more to us in our relationships and in our time, Sunday